the Revolutionary Sports Show. I'm Brian Duchaine.
And I'm Corey Sullivan.
And we're back for another week of analysis on all these NFL matchups. We're up early on Sunday, probably earlier than even the early show for the NFL today. But we're going to start it out with the Thursday night game, Houston at Cincinnati. Cincinnati was favored by 6 in this one. I personally thought Cincinnati was going to do it, but then Houston comes out, pulls out a victory, and it was huge for everybody. Hurricane Harvey, all those survivors watching, rooting on the Texans, and especially J.J. Watt, who raised all the money for everyone after the hurricane. He raised something crazy like $20-some million, or maybe even more than that. It might have even been way more than that. But I heard that he raised a ton of money and helped out that city. So I know that people were waiting around, kind of watching the game and hoping that they could pull out a win. And after the game, he was saying that it was huge for them to win because, you know, they raised all the money, they helped everybody out, and then they came out and got things done. So Brian Cushing, like you said before, he's out for being juiced. So it was a huge loss to their secondary. And then Deshaun Watson looking good out there. And you had mentioned it before we went live, but 50-yard rushing touchdown somewhere in the game right before the half, I believe. And Texans defense shut them down the rest of the game. So, Corey, what did you see in this game?
Yeah, I mean, from hindsight, it's easy to say that, I wanted the Texans to win, but it was a great performance by Deshaun Watson. First NFL start, leading off where he was in the national championship, leading an offense against a really good defense. I think Cincinnati kind of disappointed. I would have liked to see John Ross not fumble the ball. Have a great game himself. He was activated for that game. I believe that fumble pretty much ruined the rest of his night. AJ Green, an all right outing, but the Bengals need more from their offense. Defensively, they held the team to 13 points. Not a bad outing, not a terrible outing. I'll take a 13-point defensive performance any day against the NFL offense. So it was a nice defensive battle. I'm glad Deshaun Watson got the first win of his career. And it was a good game. It's something that Houston needed, a win, and they went out and got it. So hopefully they have something special in Deshaun Watson, and the Texans are one of those, special up-and-coming teams. But, speaking of some up-and-coming teams, we have Tennessee Titans taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars in the first Sunday morning game, one of the 10 o'clock here on the West Coast opening games, noon if you're in Green Bay, 1 o'clock if you're over on the East Coast. So Tennessee last week struggled with the Raiders, as you'd expect. The Raiders are a very good team, Derek Carr, but they came close. This was a close game. Marcus Mariota looking to find a bunch of different receivers. Eric Decker, one of his new receivers, was targeted over 8 times. I think there was 3 or 4 receivers that he targeted over 8 times. Threw the ball 41 times. But, it just goes to show Mariota progressing into that elite passer the NFL requires in today's game. Over 40 passes in a game. It's a really good start, really good season. Unfortunately, took the L to the Raiders, and this week going up against Blake Bortles' offense and the rest of the Jags. And I like the Jags. I said this last week. The Jags are one of my sleeper teams this year, a really good team, and they went out and dominated the Texans last week. Leonard Fournette had a great game, and I think this is going to be much of the same. I think the Jags are really the hot hand in the NFL right now until somebody knocks them off. So I think I'm going to roll with the Jags in this one, although I do like Mariota and what the Titans are building right now.
Yeah, I was kind of hating on the Jaguars last week. I thought they were the same old Jacksonville Jaguars, and I was like, hey, they're going to come out week 1, just get rolled on, and they ran up the score pretty easy last week. So I'd like to issue an apology to the Jacksonville Jaguars for not believing in them last week. But like you said, Marcus Mariota coming out, at least getting some passes in, looking for Eric Decker, which I'm not a huge Eric Decker fan personally. I know there are Eric Decker fans out there that absolutely love the guy, but never really been sold on him personally. But you got guys on the other side of the ball, Lenny Fournette just out there. I wasn't really sold on him either when I watched him in the preseason, and after he essentially sat out the season at LSU, didn't get as much of a workload as senior year and all that. He kind of played it safe and just didn't seem like he was as aggressive as senior year. He comes out and then he had a day last week. So I think if he can prove that he belongs in the NFL, and he had a game last week, I don't think you can really pick against him. Then you got guys on the other side of the ball for Jacksonville, Calais Campbell, that dude, absolutely huge, terrifying. I think Jacksonville proved themselves last week, so I'm going to pick them again this week.
Yeah, hard to argue that. You got to roll with the hot hand. And speaking of another hot hand, the Cleveland Browns are heading into Baltimore to face off against the Ravens. Another divisional game for the Ravens. They had one last week. They got another one this week. So it's gonna be tough for Cleveland. Cleveland's offense is getting better. Deshaun Kaiser looking like a decent, at least, quarterback for the Browns. Something the Browns have not had for a while. But unfortunately, they're going into the hostile environment of Baltimore. Baltimore shut out the Bengals last week. And, with a great defense like that, Cleveland just doesn't have the defense that Baltimore does. Cleveland's defense gave up 182 passing yards to Antonio Brown alone. And then on top of that, two or one or two, I can't remember if Jesse James' one of his touchdowns was called back, but two potential touchdowns to tight ends, and it didn't look good without Joe Hayden there in the Browns secondary. So without too much analysis, I think that Baltimore's defense alone will get them the victory. Plus, they're playing at home, so I don't see Baltimore losing this divisional game. How about you?
Yeah, Baltimore is just one of those teams you never really know what you're going to get, but they are at home this time, and you got Joe Flacco out there. We always talk about it. He's either a real good guy or he's not that good. So he's one of those guys that can just come out and tear it up or just have a horrible week. So this week I think he's actually going to come out and do decent and have a decent day against the Browns. And like you said, Joe Hayden leaves the Browns, goes to the Steelers, and they just kind of look lost on defense without him. Every time somebody brought up the secondary in Cleveland, you thought Joe Hayden right away. Now he's gone. So what does that leave you with? It leaves you with a bunch of guys that are just trying to prove themselves at this point. And you got Casey Williams with Cleveland. I think he's actually going to be eventually a number 3, number 4 receiver, which barely made the practice squad last year with the Seahawks. So it should tell you a little bit about the Browns receiving core. But I'm taking Baltimore on this one as well. They're favored by 7.5 at home. You got Deshaun Kaiser and Jabril Peppers up against Flacco and the aging secondary of Baltimore, but it is a veteran defense for Baltimore, and I think that's the difference between Cleveland and Baltimore, and I'm going to go with Baltimore on this one.
Yeah, another defense that's really good coming up right after, or I guess during that game, is the Carolina Panthers hosting the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills led by Tyrod Taylor and a decent defense heading into Carolina to take on Cam Newton, and they're I would say great. I think the Panthers have a great defense, and Tyrod, multi-dimensional, can run, can pass. Accuracy sometimes this is not his strong point, but with Shady McCoy, it's a decent team. The receivers not everything that you want in elite level, especially the tight end Charles Clay, not the greatest tight end, but I think it's going to be rough for them going into Carolina and trying to beat the Panthers. The only way I see the Panthers losing this game is if they beat themselves. Cam Newton throwing some interceptions or fumbling and turning the ball over, the offensive line not doing their job. But I'm not seeing it. I think Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, and the defense of that Panthers is just going to be too much for Tyrod to overcome, especially in an away game in Carolina. Just too much riding on it. I think this is going to be a strong year for them. So I'm going with Cam Newton and some team celebrations. I'd like to see some of those new allowed team celebrations from Cam and the Panthers. So I'm going with them this week.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. There's 7.5-point picks at home, and you're going up against the Bills. We always talk about it. Tyrod Taylor out here looking like a game manager, which is good. I mean, you can't argue with a guy being a game manager, but when you're going to go out there and manage the game rather than taking over the game and absolutely shutting the team down, I think Cam Newton's going to run up points on this defense for the Bills, and then Tyrod's going to do his best, try to manage the game as best he can, but I think Carolina easily covers that spread.
Yeah, and speaking of spreads, we have two of the best quarterbacks of all time going up against each other. Also, after this game or during this game, it's Tom Brady and Drew Brees as the Patriots go and visit the New Orleans Saints. Tom Brady coming off pretty much a terrible performance, just inaccurate. Passes were not on the money as you'd expect from Tom Brady. I think he had one nice deep ball to Brandon Cooks, and that was pretty much it. that was a wrap for him. But Drew Brees, on the other hand, had a great game as always. But the inexperience of the Saints just was detrimental against the Vikings. So, with a bad defense, it's hard for the offense to carry, as Drew Brees usually has to do for the Saints. And when they're a great player, you rarely have two bad games in a row. So I'm going with Tom Brady and the Patriots because I think he's still got some juice left in him.
And New Orleans has always been known as a team that kind of gives up a lot of points on defense, and they have to kind of beat you with their offense. So if their offense wasn't firing on all cylinders, they just weren't going to win last week. And it could be the case this week. New England favored by 6.5. Adrian Peterson got caught yelling at his coach last week, and camera zoomed in on him. And I know everyone was like, hey, what were you saying out there? And he couldn't really say because it probably wasn't good what he was saying, but he didn't get a lot of carries last week, and I think that's why he's frustrated. They said that they're going to go with a trio in the backfield, which is a little interesting, and you're going to limit Adrian Peterson's carries, which he's one of the best backs in the game. But I think eventually they're going to come around and start giving them the ball a little bit more and say, this guy's our veteran out there. We should give him more carries. And I think that's what they're going to do against New England. They're going to try to expose their defense and let AP try to run wild, but we'll see what happens. And I think Breeze gets them in this one. Breeze and AP get New England's defense, and although New England is favored by 6.5, I'm going with New Orleans.
Yeah, a game that should be great. A game that should not be that great is the Arizona Cardinals and the Indianapolis Colts. David Johnson, everyone or majority of the people's first round fantasy draft pick, is out for 2 to 3 months, potentially longer, potentially probably not less, but pretty much all season after undergoing wrist surgery. So a couple guys stepping in there. Hopefully CJ2K, Chris Johnson, now back on the team after getting cut, did not make the 53-man roster. So he's back. Hopefully, he can do some things. Kerwin Williams taking over the starting role there. And he's been decent. I did some Kerwin Williams research, and he could break out. Could be a great running back in the league. Be one of those roles where he gets to play this season for the Cardinals, and then it's probably on another team once David Johnson comes back, making his own money. So something to look out for. But for the rest of the offense for the Cardinals, Carson Palmer, 3 picks last week, wasn't looking good. Don't think that he's completely washed up yet. Don't think that it'll be 3 picks a game, but just goes to show that he's not all there. I don't think that he'll throw 3 picks again this season, but I also don't think that he'll lead a team to victory week after week. So the defense always good for the Cardinals, and I think that's going to be what really matters. The Colts just don't look good on offense or defense, especially with Luck not out there. Nobody knows what to expect from Tolzien and Frank Gore and T.Y. Hilton, one of the great receivers in the league right now. Playing with Tolzien and some of these other non-factors on offense it's too detrimental to the Colts, no matter if they're home or away. So I'm going with the Cardinals in this one.
Yeah, like you said, Scott Tolzien starting for Indianapolis again. We saw that didn't work last week, and like we said, going into week 1 with him starting, we're not going to be able to pick Indianapolis at all, strictly because they can't move the ball, and they didn't last week. So I'll keep this one short. I'm going with Arizona because I just don't think much analysis is needed for this one since Indianapolis is going to look so bad.
That's a good one. Speaking of going short, keeping it short, Alex Smith and the Kansas City Chiefs, who rarely ever stretch the field, are hosting the Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz looked good last week. I would like to see some more production from Alshon Jeffrey. Defensive line looked great. And, on the other side, Kansas City, they looked amazing. Kareem Hunt fumbled in his first career carry. And, every running back, every player's nightmares, fumble and be horrible in your first action. And then he turned it on and had a great game. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go. Spencer Ware out for the year after getting hurt in the preseason. Nobody knew where this team was going, what they'd look like. They cut Macklin. It looked like things were going downhill quickly for the Chiefs, but they came out and dominated the New England Patriots in the first game of the season last week. And so I would like to see them do something else, a nice encore this week. So I'm going with Kansas City, although Philadelphia is a good team this year.
Yeah, Philadelphia looked pretty good against the Wallabies last week. I know we do change the name on this show. The Washington Wallabies going out there and just didn't really look like themselves against Philadelphia. And, Carson Wentz actually had a pretty good day. I thought he wasn't going to come out and perform, but he actually did last week. So hats off to him. But Kansas City, Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt just out there doing their thing. And, they just weren't able to be contained by New England. And they're running up points left and right. And then Tyreek Hill goes out with an injury. You wondered how serious it was. Then it comes out that it was actually just him cramping up because he wasn't hydrating enough. So it's good news for Kansas City. And I think once he comes back this week and he's able to run all over Philadelphia, I think it's going to be the same story this week. And Alex Smith, I don't know if it was because they went out and drafted a quarterback and they kind of were like, hey, this guy's up and coming. You might want to perform. That he's actually performing this year and he's actually looking real good. So, it was week 1, but I think week 2, Alex Smith is going to be able to go out and do the same thing against Philadelphia that he did against New England. I'm going to go with KC in that one as well.
All right. KC looking good in that matchup. Another matchup coming up, defensive battle, I believe. Minnesota Vikings heading into Pittsburgh, the Steel City, and Xavier Howard covering Antonio Brown. That will be the matchup. Vikings defense always one of the best in the league every single year, but they still have Sam Bradford. No Teddy Bridgewater yet. Nobody knows when that will be, but with Sam Bradford as your quarterback, you're bound to have some down weeks. That's just what you get when you have him as your quarterback. And then Pittsburgh, they're looking great. Le'Veon Bell didn't have a great week, but the offense didn't really need to. Antonio Brown was going crazy. 182 receiving yards. It's not an everyday thing you see a wide receiver, almost reach 200. Sometimes teams don't even reach 200 passing yards. So I'm not holding the production of Le'Veon Bell or any of the other receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster, who I don't even think caught a pass. Even Martavis Bryant didn't do particularly well. But with Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio on the same page, and obviously their offensive playbook not even really scratching the surface of what they can do. I really like what the Steelers are doing defensively. Little J.J. Watt, TJ had a great game, and Joe Hayden is just another addition to what is already a good defense. So the Steelers are looking good. I think Sam Bradford is eventually going to come back to reality, start throwing some picks, start looking inaccurate. Although he did look great on Monday night, all hands down to him, played great. AP's return didn't let anything distract him last week, but, this week, new team. Steelers are a lot better than what the Saints have right now, so I'm going with the Steelers at home.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. You have guys like Dalvin Cook out there, Adam Thielen trying to put up points against the Pittsburgh defense, and with guys like Joe Hayden on the other side, they're going to be locking down Minnesota's receivers. I don't really see them running all over or anything like that against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh usually has a pretty good defense. And then you got Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown. And although Le'Veon didn't have the best week last week, I think it was kind of due to his little contract holdout or dispute or whatever you really want to call it, because participating in training camp, he wasn't out there for a long time, and now he's going to try to come back in week 1 and just say, now I'm getting all this money, watch me run wild. So I think week 1 might have been more of a wake-up call for Le'Veon Bell than anything else. And then week 2, I think Minnesota is going to be a challenge to they're going to be challenged to try to shut him down, because I think Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown are both going to get things done. So I'm going to take Pittsburgh in this one. I think Roethlisberger is just going to go out and spread the field, and I don't think anybody can lock down Antonio Brown personally. So I'm going to go with Pittsburgh in this one. They are favored by 6, so I'm going to say they cover that spread.
Yeah, I agree with you. Another receiver like Antonio Brown that can demand a lot of attention, can take over a game. Mike Evans and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers finally getting to have their season opener. Hurricane Irma threatened their game with the Dolphins last week, moved that to week 11. Buccaneers-Dolphins week 11. So hosting the Chicago Bears and the Buccaneers' first game of the season. It'll be Mitchell Trubisky coming in, Jordan Howard. I know they got some other guys that potentially had decent weeks last week against the Falcons, but I really don't know what to expect from the Bears. They don't have a whole lot of name brand people. Kevin White down again, 3rd season in a row. Their rookie from a couple years ago thought that was going to be a game changer, and just leg injuries and just injuries in general, collarbone, everything just have derailed this man's career. So Mitchell Trubisky really doesn't have anybody to throw to. The running game is, I mean, that's really all they have. But if that's all you have, do you really have anything? Just a lot of question marks really around the Bears team in general. But the Buccaneers looking good. I like Jameis Winston. I like the addition of Deshaun Jackson to help out, alleviate some pressure off of Mike Evans, and then OJ Howard, a tight end who, I don't think the first year in the league he'll be Gronkowski or Jimmy Graham or anything like that, but definitely an upgrade. So we'll see what they got. But I'm liking what the Buccaneers have. Defense is looking good, and so I'm going with them.
Yeah, Chicago, you don't really know exactly what you have. You have Jordan Howard as the running back, which, is he really going to be that guy? Is he going to be real good? He's not going to be a Pro Bowler or anything like that as far as I'm concerned. And then you got guys on the other side of the ball, William Golston, my guy, on Tampa Bay that's just going to lock them down. So I really think Tampa Bay gets them in this one. There's guys like Mike Evans, like you said, able to just go out and be a huge dude that you can just look for in any situation. So Tampa Bay favored by 7 in this one. I'm just not personally sold on the Bears yet. So if the Bears want to go out and blow out Tampa Bay, maybe they'll gain some respect from me. But until then, I'm picking Tampa Bay to easily cover the spread.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think they'll cover the spread easily as well. But I talked about it earlier. Miami Dolphins also did not play last week because of Hurricane Irma. Hopefully, all those relief funds and everything is going into effect, and the city of Miami and the surrounding areas are being rebuilt. But today, this afternoon, the afternoon games kicking off with Miami going to LA, coming here to California and taking on the Chargers. And I'm not sure what to expect from Miami, to be honest with you. Jay Cutler, the new addition, his receiving core is good. Devontae Parker and Jarvis Landry, 2 really good receivers. Jay Ajayi, decent running back. The offensive line was looking good last year, was doing a good job protecting the quarterback and the run game. So defensively, they probably have the best D-line in the game if they can all produce. Ndamukong Suh, probably the best D tackle, should be able to be the whole line himself with how much he's getting paid. But that's neither here nor there. The defense needs to come to play. A lot of people had the Dolphins going to the Super Bowl, and some said potentially winning it last season. This year, not much of a difference, but just lower expectations. So it'll be exciting to see which Dolphins team comes out. They still kind of have that mysterious factor that the rest of the teams had last week. You kind of know what you're going to get to expect from the teams now that the year has started. Teams have struggled, teams have succeeded. New guys like Kareem Hunt have come on the scene, but we haven't seen that from the Buccaneers or the Dolphins yet. So it'll be exciting to see what Jay Cutler can do, and hopefully he can stay healthy. Because who knows what's going to go down if the Dolphins have another quarterback go down, and the season really hasn't even started. So that's going to be interesting. The Chargers, I think the Chargers were lucky. They had a really terrible week last week, came on at the end after they got an interception that they didn't deserve. Pass interference, blatant pass interference as the Broncos were driving, and they got a pick on it. Came down, got some momentum off of that, and almost won the game. We're just a timeout, a frozen kick short of tying the game and going to overtime. So I have a feeling that the Dolphins are going to play a lot better than that, and hopefully so will the Chargers. And I think just based on mysticism alone, I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I think that they just have much more to offer, and I kind of know what I'm going to get from the Chargers. So I'm going with the Dolphins in this one. I think that they can go into LA and beat the new LA team. And also the Jets in Oakland, another afternoon game. The Jets, they don't look good with McGowan, Bilo Powell, and Jermaine Kearse as your 1, 2, 3 options on offense. to keep it short, I just don't know how you can win any games with those three options. Neither of those scare me. And you're heading into Oakland. Oakland is one of those up and coming teams, if not one of the strongest teams in the AFC. Derek Carr and Marshawn Beast Mode Lynch, Amari Cooper, and Michael Crabtree. It's going to be tough to beat those guys. So keeping it short, just going with the Raiders in that one. And Brian, if he's still there, how do you feel about the Raiders in the Jets game? I think it'll be good too. I think the Raiders will have that one. And then the Rams in Washington. Washington, I just don't like their team name. Simple as that. I think it's very disrespectful. So I hope that they don't win. Going with the Rams, just Goff, and they had a strong outing. Although I don't think the Rams are the best team in the NFL. I think that putting up 46 points on an NFL defense is it's impressive. I don't think that's something that you can just wipe off or have anything negative to say about. 46 points is a lot of points, and Goff played well. The whole offense played well. Tavon Austin did not play well, but for him being usually their number one option, to have guys like Cooper Kupp from Eastern Washington University, a rookie, step up and make some big plays. Sammy Watkins make some big plays. Robert Woods, and even Todd Gurley. It was a positive sign for the first week of the season from guys that you didn't know what you were going to get from. It was great for Les Snead. It's something that the general manager there in Los Angeles needed from his guys, especially from the guys that he picked this season. And, Goff is his quarterback. So to see all of his guys succeed was a great thing for him. It was a great thing for Los Angeles. And it came on a week where Aaron Donald, his issues got figured out with the team, and I believe he'll be back this week, which is, just another negative for Washington. They have the Rams are bringing back one of the best defensive players in the NFL to their line, somebody that doesn't need to get reacclimated to the team. He's been there a while. The guys know how to play with him, and hopefully it's a great outing for the Rams. I think that they'll win that one pretty easily. The spread there was 3.5. I think that they'll cover that, probably a touchdown. I'm not too confident in Washington's team, although they did add Terrell Pryor and some other things. I just don't think that Rob Kelly in that run game is overly impressive right now. Jordan Reed had a down week last week, although he still is one of the best tight ends in the game. So we'll see what him and Kirk Cousins could do here in LA or in the LA area. And then another really strong game, the game of the week, Dallas and Denver taking on each other. Denver going in to host Dallas, and Dallas, they looked great last week. As you'd expect, Zeke and everyone's there. Jalen Smith, the first round pick from 2 years ago, there for their defense, and strong. They're looking good. Zeke and Dak and Dez and everyone on offense looking good. And then the Broncos, like I said earlier, would have dominated the Chargers, but the referees let them back in the game. They almost lost the game. Just momentum at the end of the game. I don't think that's anything here or there. The Broncos offense is something to worry about. They're not really overly impressive. So if they can't get it going, and the Cowboys are just strong, and on offense and defense, it's going to be a long afternoon for Denver. But I think that their defense will be able to make some holds, and the offense hopefully will keep it a close game. So I expect that to be a great game. And another game that I expect to be a great game is the Seahawks and 49ers. Seahawks coming back home to Seattle after a loss in Green Bay. A good game, though. A good game for the Seahawks. The defense looked great. Gave up 0 points on the road in the first half, and was just tired. As the season progresses, hopefully their endurance and in-game shape will be impeccable. But first week it was a rough week. Sloppy play on both sides for Green Bay and the Seahawks, and it was a good start. So now they'll get to go home, beat up on a divisional rival 49ers team that just doesn't have much skill. So it'll be exciting to see, you know, the offense take a step forward and to see where this team really is at. Although, I mean, Green Bay was a great measuring stick on where this team was at. Offensive line needs some work, as it has for quite some time now, but it'll be nice to see Russ step up, Jimmy, and those guys make some plays that they should have made last week. A lot of drops, but, you know, like I said, a lot of rust, a lot of sloppy play on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. Some miscues on defense led to some big touchdowns for Green Bay. So as long as they clean those up and they look better at home week 2, it'll be nice to see. I think the story is Seahawks on the road. Why they always look like a different team, but they have to take care of business at home, and I think that they can do that easily against the 49ers. And 2 more games left. We got the Sunday night game with the Packers and the Falcons. The Packers, like I said, beat the Seahawks at home. Now they're going to be the road team traveling into Atlanta, who Atlanta played the Bears close last week. So I don't know. It's not a good look. The Bears don't really have a whole lot of talent. And for the Super Bowl runner-ups to have a close game where potentially they could have lost. It was you know, if the Bears would have been able to score on that last drive with, you know, time expiring, then the Falcons are 0-1. You know, first game of the season, sloppy play, gave up a lot of points. They can't play like that this week against Green Bay. Green Bay is a sound offense and defense. Defense isn't overly exciting, but they played great at home last week, and they're not a bad bunch. It's not a bad defense, but a middle of the road defense, nothing too special. But I think the Green Bay's offense is just a lot better than what the Falcons have right now, and I'm going with Aaron Rodgers and the Packer offense in this one. And then for the Monday night game, we have Detroit, Brian's Detroit team, facing off against the Giants, and Detroit is looking good. Stafford, the highest paid player right now, had a great game last week, connected on some deep balls, and quieted a lot of doubters, at least for the week, that he doesn't deserve that money. Had a great game, picked up the win, did everything you need to do to be a good NFL team, playoff caliber. It all looked good. Defense looked good. The rookie Galloway looked good, caught a touchdown and had a great game. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think this game ultimately comes down to if Odell plays or not. If Odell plays, then it's going to be hard for me to find any team that can beat the Giants' three-headed monster of Sterling Shepard, Brandon Marshall, and Odell Beckham Jr. So if Odell plays, I think there's not a huge chance that the Lions win this one, especially I believe they are on the road in New York, where the Giants initially, I don't know if they're favored by 3.5 now. I'm not sure where the line is at, but it opened up at 3.5 in the Giants' favor. So if Odell plays, I think that they cover that easily. And I expect Stafford and everyone to have a good game. I expect it to be a great game, but I'm going with the Giants in this one. So hopefully Odell plays. I'm banking on it. I'm sure everyone else who has him on their fantasy team is banking on Odell playing. Would be nice. Sent out a tweet that he doesn't care about your fantasy team, just wants to be healthy. This is real life, his livelihood, which is understandable. And yeah, so that about wraps it up for the Revolutionary Sports Show. Thanks for listening. Hopefully we can get Brian back in here for the full show next week. And we'll see you later. Peace.